Good morning, Year 8. I hope you're well and having a lovely day. Please read out the date and the title of Dickensian Children. For your day now, I would like you to list all the characters we have met in Dickens novels who were children. What do they all have in common? Challenge. Do you know the names of any other children in Dickens novels that we have not looked at? You have 5 minutes to complete the do now. For this lesson, you will need a pen, pencil and highlighter, your exercise book, and your notes from the previous lessons. Please make sure you have everything you need. So children in Dickens novels. For Oliver, Pip, Tiny Tim, the Artful Dodger, and they all grow up, initially at least, in poverty. So that is the unifying factor for all these children. Essay preparation. How do you think Victorian society shaped Dickens' characters? Task 1. Make notes. For each child, I'd like you to write down the novel they appear in. Also, write down anything you remember about the story and the part they played in it. For a challenge, I'd like you to answer this question. How were they shaped by the times they lived in, and/or what social injustices was Dickens highlighting through their story? Pause the video for 15 minutes to do this now. Okay, so first we have Tiny Tim. He appears in A Christmas Carol. He is crippled and carries a crutch with him. He is part of the Cratchit family. His father, Bob Cratchit, is Scrooge's clerk. They are poor, but they are a loving and supportive family. The ghost of Christmas Present takes Scrooge to see how his clerk celebrates Christmas even though he does not have much money. Tiny Tim thinks of others before himself. God bless us, everyone, despite having so little. In direct contrast to Scrooge, who has so much, yet thinks only of himself. Dickens wants to highlight the contrast of those with and without, at a time, Christmas, when we should all be thinking of each other. For the last one, please do make sure you've added to your notes with what's on the slide. So now we've got Pip. He appears in Great Expectations. He is an orphan who is raised by hand by his sister. She mistreats him. At the start of the novel, he is visiting the graves of his parents and younger brother when he encounters the convict Magwitch. He is forced to steal from his sister's pantry in order to feed Magwitch. Pip's vulnerability is shown through his being an orphan and the cruel treatment he receives from his sister. Right from an early age, he is exposed to the world of crime or villainy through Magwitch, an escaped convict, and through Miss Havisham's treatment of Estella. So again, please do add to your notes with what's on the slide. Next we have Oliver, who of course appears in Oliver Twist. He asks for more food in the workhouse, and as a result is sold to a cruel man. He ends up running away to London, where he meets up with the Artful Dodger and joins Fagin's gang. He is forced to learn how to steal and goes out on jobs with the gang. Eventually, he is rescued from this life and adopted by a man called Mr. Brownlow. He's first forced to learn how to steal whilst in Fagin's gang. However, although he is the victim of huge injustices and he is surrounded by violence and crime in London, he never becomes bad. Again, pause to add these and what's on the slide to your own notes. Artful Dodger appears in Oliver Twist. He is the first one to meet Oliver when he arrives in London. He takes Oliver to Fagin to become part of the gang of child criminals. The Artful Dodger is loyal to Fagin, who consider him his best pickpocketer, and does his best to help Oliver. He runs away when Oliver is chased and arrested for stealing the handkerchief which he and Charlie Bates stole. Without family and with no state care or education, the Artful Dodger did not have much choice other than to steal in order to make a living. Again, pause the video to add what's on the slide to your own notes. So how does Dickens highlight social injustice through these novels? A Christmas Carol. A Christmas Carol was Dickens' response to the Children's Employment Commission report on the miseries suffered by many poor children. Dickens exposed suggestively selfishness and greed as the dominant features of his England. He described almost in a documentary manner Christmas celebrated by the working poor of early Victorian England. As a social commentator, Dickens saw the need for the reform of English society. He urged that the wealthy and privileged exhibit a greater humanitarianism towards the poor and the vulnerable. Oliver Twist. With regards to the last one, make sure you jot down some keynotes. Dickens intended Oliver Twist to show the system's treatment of an innocent child born and raised in the workhouse system, where no fault could be ascribed to the child. He shows the boys neglected, ill-treated, and experiencing hunger so bad that one child threatens to eat one of the others if he isn't better fed. The Poor Law Amendment Act of 1834, otherwise known as the New Poor Law, established the workhouse system. Instead of providing a refuge for the elderly, sick, and poor, and instead of providing food or clothing in exchange for work in times of high employment, workhouses were to become a sort of prison system. The government's intention was to slash expenditure and poverty by setting a cruelly deterrent regime. This was at a time when there was no national health service to help the sick get well, no pension scheme to help the elderly remain at home, no unemployment pay for people with no work, no social services at all for those in need. So you can see that for many, if not all, the people that Oliver meets in London, Nancy, the Artful Dodger, Fagin, there are not many options available outside a life of crime if you are not born into a family with money. Pause the video to make some notes, please. And now you have Great Expectations. Dickens was certainly interested in crime and punishment in his own society. Yet in this novel, crime is not so much a social issue as a psychological threat, a powerful influence that the novel's hero, with all his ambitions to be a gentleman, cannot escape. Right from the start of the novel, Dickens encounters Magwitch, an escaped convict. He also writes about prison ships, one of which Magwitch escapes from, and the criminals on them, who are treated as utterly alien and separate. Pip's life is shadowed by crime and criminals. Great Expectations is the story of a young man of high pretensions and great expectations who believes that his fortune comes to him from an heiress, when in fact it's bequeathed to him by the criminal Magwitch. Pip thinks he can be better than his background, better than Joe and Biddy, the two people who love him the most. Dickens was a critic of the British legal system, which he thought was corrupt and brutal. He highlighted the Victorian perception that criminals were always from the working class or poorest class of society. In the novel, Magwitch's accomplice Compeyson, who has received the better upbringing of the two, always receives the lighter punishment. Dickens exhibits an underworld into which his young hero is dragged, but from which he is ultimately redeemed. In Great Expectations, Dickens shows his readers that crime was not something distant. Pip's awareness of its closeness to him dramatizes his guilt at his own selfishness and disloyalty. Pause the video to jot down the key points. How do you think Victorian society, or the social injustices of the time, shaped these children? What I would like you to do is research your essay. Choose one child to focus on. Carry out some additional research for your chosen character. You can find really good information from sites such as the British Library, SparkNotes, and BBC Bitesize. Here are some suggested links from the British Library which are on class charts. You have 15 minutes to conduct your research. Please do that now. And task 3 is to start writing your essay. How do you think Victorian society shaped these children? Choose one child to focus on and write the opening paragraphs to the essay. You have 20 minutes or to the end of the lesson to do that now. And that is the end of today's lesson. I hope you enjoyed it and I look forward to speaking to you next time. Thank you.